The Ukrainian army says fierce fighting is still ongoing in the town of Soledar in eastern Ukraine, a day after Russian mercenaries claimed they had seized full control. After months of setbacks, a Russian victory in Soledar would bring it closer to encircling the city of Bakhmut, a key goal for Moscow. Well, as those battles continue to rage, yesterday Vladimir Putin removed Russia's top commander in Ukraine just 3 months after he was installed. Let's get the latest then live from Moscow. Our correspondent Daniel Hawkins is standing by for us there. Daniel, first of all, what can you tell us then about this reshuffle within the Russian army?
Well, reshuffles within the Russian top command in Ukraine have happened before, and they've depended on what's been going on the ground in terms of battlefield successes or failures. In the very early stages of this conflict, Russia launched 3 assaults, a 3-pronged approach from the north, northeast and east, in a swift operation to defeat Ukraine decisively and quickly. When that failed, they withdrew forces from the north and from the northeast, focusing on the Donbass. They understood that to reach their goals, they needed more firepower, more manpower. Now Russia has that, of course, through mass mobilization or partial mobilization, as the Kremlin says, and the economy essentially on a war footing. And Surovikin, the general before Gerasimov, was really brought in to stabilize those lines as Russia suffered failures and retreats on the battlefield, and maybe take up a sort of defensive stance, changing Russia's tactics to aerial assaults through drone and missile strikes. With Gerasimov brought in charge with the Ministry of Defense's statement, which we heard saying that this change was necessary to expand the scale of this operation. This could mean a switch to ground offensive in the east or in the south. It also means Gerasimov, as a commander, will bring his expertise as a commander in the Chechen campaign, an experienced urban commander, which is what we're seeing, a lot of urban fighting in the Donbass right now. It's also a political statement. Gerasimov is considered a safe pair of hands, Putin's right-hand man in many ways, one of the key planners of this so-called special military operation. And it's basically combining a politically safe, stable pair of hands with a commander who is more competent and more experienced, perhaps in the field, in the form of Surovikin. So by doing this reshuffle, the Kremlin is perhaps bringing in some stability politically, while focusing on a more combined arms approach on the ground to prepare for some sort of ground offensive at the end of winter, at the start of spring.
And you mentioned that fighting going on right now in the Donbass. The focus today that we're talking about at France 24 is this town of Soledar, not far from Bakhmut. Russian forces have poured a lot of their energies into this town. Just tell us why. Why is this so important to Russia?
Absolutely. It's the key target right now for Russian forces. First of all, this will be a new line of defense should Soledar be captured. It's got many miles of tunnels in the salt mines which stretch beyond the front lines, behind enemy lines. We all saw what a thorn in the side of the Russian forces, Mariupol and the Azovstal steelworks were many months ago, how long they took to capture. The Soledar salt mines would present a similar thorn in the side of Ukrainian troops should Russia gain that territory. It's also, of course, on the approaches to Bakhmut, which is a critical transport hub, a road and rail transport hub. And by threatening Bakhmut or even capturing Bakhmut, though that's far from certain at this stage, Russia will cut off supply lines to Ukrainian troops in the region and also be able to threaten other regional capitals and centers of Ukrainian resistance like Kramatorsk and Slavyansk, a bit further to the northeast. Politically also it's important because the Russian high command in Ukraine need to show something, as well as the Wagner group under Prigozhin. They need to show that they are attaining some degree of success. And politically, of course, the Donbass is now officially the focus of the Russian campaign. Many months ago, the Kremlin said we're switching to the Donbass as opposed to other territories in Ukraine, to liberating that. So that fits in politically as well. It also fits in potentially with this change of tactics we spoke about earlier, because Russia has switched its tactics to a more war of attrition, rather than using sweeping counteroffensives through the countryside, through the forests in the north. This is urban warfare in an area full of industrial heartland, full of strongholds. As Prigozhin, the head of Wagner Group, said, every house is a fortress. That's what we're seeing there right now. So essentially capturing Soledar and Bakhmut is a very important statement politically. It threatens Ukrainian troops in the rest of the region, and it signifies a switch to a war of urban attrition as opposed to a war of rapid offensives and counteroffensive across open ground.
Daniel Hawkins, live in Moscow.